Good afternoon. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our generous sponsors. We look forward to seeing you all soon in person. Thank you to Dr. Moreland for your insight and clarity. Thank you to Mike Davis, Congresswoman Giffords, Governor Baker, and to Mayan and Brianna. Thank you for your courage and power of example. Roka's mission is to be a relentless force in disrupting incarceration, poverty, and racism by engaging young adults, police, and systems at the center of urban violence in relationships to address trauma, find hope, and drive change. During this most unusual and painful year, Roka had the extraordinary honor of spending time with over 1,000 young men, young mothers, and their children. With the exception of a few weeks, we were out on the street doing outreach with masks and social distancing. We transitioned some of our programming to virtual. We improved our ability to engage with young people, and we stayed in contact with our partners. As always, we have much to learn. The nature of violence is not the same as it was 5 years ago. In some cities, law enforcement's lists of persons of interest are now reaching up to 6,000 people, illustrating a dramatic expansion of trauma impacting violence and homicides, driven often by instantaneous reaction, fueled by social media, and ruled by fear. We have all seen the proliferation of violence, drugs, and guns in our most traumatized communities, further impacting COVID-19 and structural racism. Our old methods will not work. Incarceration is expensive and a failure. Jobs and GED programs are not enough, and even the most credible messenger cannot convince a young person to do differently if that young person is living in a state of fight or flight and cannot access the thinking part of their brain for healthy and safe decision making. If we don't address the impact of lived trauma, we can't hope for healing and change. At Roka, we believe justice is a verb. It is about what we do. We take what we learn from the brain science and research to disrupt cycles of violence, trauma, and systemic racism. Over the past year, due to the incredible generosity of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Bank of America, we quietly started working with partners, criminal justice organizations, and communities to increase their capacity to work with young people at the center of urban violence. I am so excited today to officially launch the Roka Impact Institute in honor of James E. Mahoney. Together, through this institute, we can build critical momentum in a field that so often tends to focus on end-stage results, people contacted, jobs obtained, and not enough on the unique set of strategies, including safety, consistency, healing-centered cognitive behavioral support for young people and the adults in the system, and the accountability we all need as institutions that are required to impact the tragic and unacceptable violence we continue to witness in our country. If we want and hope for change for young people, we must change too. The Institute today has the privilege of working with criminal justice partners across Massachusetts and Baltimore, and several nonprofits in Connecticut and New York City. Several years ago, we had the remarkable opportunity to get to know Jim Mahoney. His powerful spirit and belief in redemption were awe-inspiring. We are so grateful to have known him. We want to thank Peggy, his wife, and his family for allowing us in some small way to champion his legacy through the Roka Impact Institute in his honor and the new annual James E. Mahoney Award. And we would like to express our deep gratitude to the Bank of America for making this possible. I wish Jim could have met Viche, in whose name we honor the young people. They would have liked each other. And as I sit in peacemaking circles with young people and police, finding a new way to be together, I know that Jim would have loved to have been there. As we continue to witness the unjust and excessive violence inflicted on Black and Brown people across this country, we are clear that our work must continue with an urgency and intensity more critical now than ever. In the face of pain, grief, anger, and hopelessness, our work must continue to remain focused on the absolute truth that change is possible. Your investment in Roka enables this work to continue. Please consider making a donation today. Thank you. I now have the honor of introducing you to Ann Finucane, Vice Chair of Bank of America. Bank of America's commitment to social justice and our communities is so powerful.
Congratulations, Mayan, for your award, and a special thanks to Dr. Moreland from McLean Hospital for sharing your expertise about youth and trauma. Bank of America has a deep respect and a continuing partnership with Roka, starting with a focus on Greater Boston and now working to scale Roka's work nationwide. Roka's more than 30 years of experience to break cycles of racism, poverty, and incarceration is critically important to our communities, and I'd like to thank Molly for her leadership. This is an area that Bank of America cares deeply about. We recognize that young people who have experienced trauma need support to build pathways toward a better future, and that public-private partnerships are critical to develop alternative pathways for at-risk youth. This work is one way we are helping to advance economic and social progress in the communities we serve. My friend and colleague Jim Mahoney, our former public policy and strategy executive at Bank of America, was a leading advocate for Roka and Roka's work. He was passionate about breaking the cycle of prison recidivism and intergenerational poverty. We're very appreciative that Roka is recognizing Jim's passion and commitment for young people through the Impact Institute. Jim visited Roka and was struck by the people there and the work they do. And because Jim was Jim, he made a lasting impression on them as well. Now I'd like to introduce Jim's wonderful wife, Peggy McLaughlin, who will share a little bit more about Jim.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you, Roka, for this wonderful honor in Jim's name, which I accept in the name of his 3 children, Gracia, Jake, and Katria, and also in the name of his 7 brothers and sisters. When Jim looked at you, he did so with unconditional, positive regard. He didn't care if you were a saint or a scoundrel. Under that gaze, you felt warmed, accepted, and acknowledged. Has someone looked at you that way? If they have, you know what a powerful force that is. It cannot be faked. It can only be genuine. The power of that gaze produced a legion of fierce and loyal friends, family, and colleagues. Jim also knew something was funny about 30 seconds before you did. And then the gleam in his eyes behind those glasses would begin while he waited for you to catch up. Partly due to his Irish DNA, as well as a genuine sense of mirth and fun, accompanied by some gentle teasing, Jim rarely left a conversation without producing a laugh and a smile. I'm sure he'd be smiling now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peggy. We are humbled and grateful to have known Jim. Thank you again to Bank of America. Now I am thrilled to introduce to you the winner of the new James E. Mahoney Award, to be given each year to an individual or an organization who has demonstrated innovative leadership, humility, and commitment to systemic change on behalf of young people. Unanimously, we chose Peter Forbes, the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, for this award. Roka has worked with Peter for over 30 years and has seen firsthand his commitment to young people and to changing the system to serve them more effectively and fairly. He is at heart a man of great honesty, a learner and a listener, with a strong team that continues to drive to innovation and positive change for young people. Thank you, Peter, for your courage, dedication, and open mind.
I'm very honored and thankful to receive the award from Roka on behalf of the Mass Department of Youth Services. I've had the opportunity to reflect a little bit about Roka and today, and I've known Molly for probably about 30 years, and in that time frame, I've seen Roka grow from a small aspirational program to an absolute powerhouse. One way of thinking about this is hospitals, health clinics, public school systems, they all have the potential to have significant and long-term positive contributions to their communities. Well, Roka has emerged as a force on that scale to enhance community safety, and they do that by improving and offering opportunities to redirect the life course for young people that are at high risk in urban communities across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And for context, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, juvenile justice was in a very, very different place. We were using terms like offender, predator, sanctions, incapacitation. In that process, we were employing concepts like boot camps, scared straight programs, and we were doing things that didn't work. And as a result of that, we were generating poor outcomes for young people and for communities. Since that time, our work at DYS has really evolved, and we've embraced several core principles, including the premise that young people can make positive change in their lives, that we as an agency and every staff member can be part of that change, and that our investment in youth development actually contributes to community safety. In 2012, Mark Lipsey from Vanderbilt University published a seminal national study that affirmed that therapeutic approaches drive lower recidivism with justice-involved youth, and that coercive strategies and punishment strategies actually increase recidivism. So in that equation, if we're running a coercive system, we run the risk of young people actually being worse off for their contact with the system. And that research piece really resonated for me and helped me set the compass for my department at DYS. It's not our role to punish young people. We can have accountability without punishment. People that work with adolescents see disrespect, non-responsiveness, impulsivity, defiance, behaviors that are typical of adolescence. Those are not descriptors of juvenile delinquency. That's typical adolescent behavior. So it's really important that as adults working with young people that we act, but that we don't overreact. We respond to the behavior, but not overreact. At DYS, we've learned an awful lot from Roka related to operating systems, including use of data, discipline related to program outcomes, how to strategically get staff on board with the change process, balancing risk management with community safety, and most importantly, courage and grace. We need to use our resources strategically and have clear goals and outcomes. We then need to invest in the activities that will help us get to where we want to go. Roka really has been the model for this approach to the work. The single most important event in my career was the birth of my first son in 1992. That really turned the lights on for me with a deeper appreciation for what this is all about. Families really love their children, and we're here as part of that process to guide them. I've been very fortunate over the past 30 years to go to work every day with 4 sons growing up in my house. That's really been an anchor for me in grounding me in my work. Our agency at DYS, as well as myself personally, have grown and benefited from our relationship and our friendship with Roka over the years. Thank you very much for this opportunity.